There's a subject most folks don't talk about, especially once we cross that age of 60. It's whispered about, sometimes joked about, and often dismissed as something only younger people worry about. But the truth is, it's still part of who we are, no matter how many birthdays we've celebrated. And here's the thing, if you don't keep a healthy relationship with your body, even in this most private way, it can have consequences, real ones. That's why today we're diving into a topic that may surprise you. If you don't masturbate in old age, this will happen to you. Now, before you shift in your chair or feel tempted to click away, let me say this. What we're talking about here is not about embarrassment, and it's certainly not about shame. It's about health. Just like brushing your teeth or stretching your legs, this is part of how the body stays in tune with itself. And I've seen firsthand, in my years of practice, how this conversation changes lives. I remember one gentleman, Harold, who came into my clinic with a sheepish grin. He was 72 at the time, a retired teacher, proud grandfather of 4. He leaned in and said, "Doc, I'm not sure if I should even ask you this, but I've stopped, doing that. I figured at my age, it doesn't matter anymore. But lately, I've noticed I don't feel as alive down there. Is this normal?" He whispered the word normal, like a child afraid of being scolded. But what Harold didn't realize is that countless men his age ask me the same thing. And let me introduce myself for those of you meeting me for the first time. I'm Dr. Nolan Easton. I've spent more than 30 years as a men's health specialist, and my focus has always been on the things nobody else wants to talk about. Because let's face it, when you're past 60, the conversations about cholesterol and arthritis are loud and clear. But when it comes to intimacy and self-care, the silence can be deafening. My mission is to break that silence with compassion, honesty, and a little bit of courage. Now, Harold's concern is one I want to share with you because what he experienced is exactly what I've seen again and again. When a man stops stimulating his body, several changes happen. First, the circulation slows down. Think of it like a garden hose. If you never turn it on, the water inside stagnates. The tissues that depend on that flow become weaker over time, and that can mean a greater risk of erectile issues. But it's not just physical. The brain, too, misses out. You see, arousal and climax are not only about the body. They're about the release of chemicals that lift your mood, ease tension, and even help you sleep better. Without them, men often report feeling irritable, restless, or simply less engaged in life. I explained this to Harold gently, watching as his eyes widened. "You mean it's good for me?" he asked, half smiling. And I nodded, because yes, it is. Not in excess, not compulsively, but as a healthy, natural way to keep the body and mind in balance. Now, I want to pause here and say something important to you, my friends, watching. If this message is resonating, if you're nodding your head or maybe even chuckling because you've wondered the same thing, let me know in the comments with a simple yes or no. Do you think this is something men our age should keep talking about? I personally read your answers and it helps me guide the advice I share here, so don't be shy. And while you're here, go ahead and tap that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell icon, because this is the kind of space where we can talk openly about what others ignore. Back to Harold. Over the weeks that followed, he decided to take my advice. He allowed himself to reconnect with his body, and what happened was remarkable. His blood flow improved. He felt lighter, happier. Even his wife commented that he seemed more playful again. It wasn't about performance with someone else, it was about the spark within him being reignited. And that spark, once lit, has a way of coloring every corner of life. Here's the truth most people won't tell you. Not engaging in self-pleasure as you age can actually contribute to decline, physically and emotionally. The pelvic muscles weaken, the prostate may become more prone to discomfort, and your overall sense of vitality starts to dim. It's like an engine that sits unused in the garage. It rusts faster than the one that's taken out for a spin once in a while. And let me be clear, this isn't about frequency charts or obligations. It's not about comparing yourself to others. It's about understanding that your body was designed for activity, for circulation, for release. And choosing to ignore that is like choosing to ignore exercise. You may not notice the effects right away, but over time, they show. When Harold came back for his next visit, he laughed and said, "Doc, I think I feel 20 years younger." Now, of course, he didn't actually become 20 years younger, but he tapped into something that made him feel alive again, connected again. And that's the point I want you to carry with you. So if you've been wondering, is it okay that I stopped? Does it really matter at my age? The answer is that yes, it matters. It matters for your circulation, your mood, your sleep, your confidence, and even your sense of self. Ignoring this part of your health doesn't make you stronger, it makes you weaker. And addressing it doesn't make you odd, it makes you wise. You see, what Harold learned, and what I want you to learn, is that our bodies don't stop needing care just because we reach retirement age. In fact, this may be the most important time of all to stay engaged, because it sets the tone for how the years ahead will feel. Will they be heavy and disconnected, or will they be light and full of vitality? That's the choice in front of you. And remember, friends, this conversation is not about judgment. Some men feel hesitant because of cultural or religious upbringing, others because of embarrassment. But health doesn't ask for permission. It simply responds to what we do or don't do. And my role, as someone who's walked alongside thousands of men over decades, is to encourage you to listen to your body and honor it, even in this private, personal way. Harold is just one story, but I've seen many like his, and each time, the outcome reminds me why I do this work. Because men deserve to know the truth, that their well-being depends on choices that may not always be talked about, but that make all the difference. So take this to heart. Think of your body like a trusted companion that's been with you for over 60 years. It's asking you, gently, to keep it active, to keep it alive. And the way you answer that request will shape how strong, confident, and connected you feel, not just today, but in the many years still ahead. When Harold first opened up to me about stopping self-pleasure, he carried a quiet heaviness. He wasn't just worried about what was happening physically, but about what it meant for his sense of manhood. And this is something I hear all the time from men over 60. They don't always say it directly, but it's there in their tone, in their questions, in the way they pause before finishing a sentence. It's this unspoken fear, am I still the same man if I stop doing this? And that's where the heart of this conversation lies. Because masturbation, especially in older age, is not only about the body. It's about identity, confidence, and mental well-being. And if you let it go completely, the changes can ripple out into places you'd never expect. I often explain it like this. Think about your favorite piece of music. Maybe it's an old jazz record. Maybe it's a love song from your teenage years, or even a hymn from church. Now imagine never hearing it again. At first, you'd miss it, but over time, the silence would become normal. You'd go on, but something essential would be missing from the rhythm of your days. That's exactly what happens when men cut this part of life out. They lose a note in their personal song. When Harold stopped, he began noticing irritability creeping in. His wife told me later with a chuckle, "Doctor, he was grumbling about the dog one minute and snapping at the grandkids the next." She thought it was just part of aging. But really, it was his body missing those natural chemicals that self-release bring. Dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins. These are the very things that keep us balanced, calm, and connected. Without them, stress builds up, frustration lingers, and even small joys don't feel quite as bright. This is why I tell men, don't think of masturbation as a guilty pleasure. Think of it as maintenance, like changing the oil in your car or trimming the hedges in the yard. It keeps things running smoothly, both in your body and in your mind. And when you stop, it shows up in more than one way. One of the clearest places it shows up is in sleep. Many men past 60 struggle to fall asleep or stay asleep through the night. They toss, they turn, they wake up feeling unrested. What they don't realize is that the hormones released during orgasm actually help regulate sleep cycles. They calm the nervous system, lower stress hormones, and signal the body to rest. Without that, sleep can become more fragile, more restless. Harold admitted to me he hadn't had a good night's sleep in months until he got back into the habit. And wouldn't you know it, his sleep improved almost immediately. Now, I want to pause here to invite you, my friends watching, to take part in this conversation. If what I'm saying rings true, if you've ever noticed how your mood or sleep improves when you take care of yourself in this way, drop a yes in the comments. If not, leave a no. I promise you, I read through your answers and they help me understand exactly what you need from me. So don't hesitate to share. And while you're here, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap that bell icon, because this...
Now, let me be absolutely clear here. I'm not telling you that you need to do this daily or that there's a magic number that guarantees perfect health. That's not the point. The point is to recognize that choosing never to do it again has consequences, and choosing to allow yourself that outlet has benefits, real, measurable benefits that affect mood, sleep, circulation, prostate health, and confidence. What I've found in my decades of practice is that the men who continue to nurture this part of their health age differently. They tend to carry less stress, show more vitality, and maintain better intimacy with their partners. They don't carry that weight of uncertainty that Harold first brought into my office. They know their body is still alive, still responsive, still theirs to enjoy. And perhaps the most touching part is the way it often strengthens their relationships. Harold's wife told me months later, "I feel like I got my husband back." Not because they suddenly became newlyweds again, but because the spark in him returned. He was lighter, warmer, more affectionate. That's what happens when a man feels connected to himself. He can more easily connect to those he loves. So when I hear men say, "Doc, I think I'm too old for that," my response is always, "You're never too old to take care of yourself." This is not about shame, and it's not about indulgence. It's about dignity. It's about honoring the body that's carried you for more than 60 years. It's about choosing vitality over decline. The truth is, if you stop masturbating in old age, you risk losing more than just a moment of pleasure. You risk losing sleep, confidence, circulation, and even part of your identity as a man. And if you allow yourself to continue, you're not only maintaining function, you're maintaining the rhythm, the spark, the connection that makes life worth living. That was the lesson Harold learned. And it's the lesson I hope you'll take to heart too. When Harold began to see the changes in himself, it was like watching a man rediscover his youth, not in the sense of turning back the clock, but in reclaiming something he thought he'd lost forever. He wasn't just sleeping better or smiling more, he was engaging with life again. He told me once, "Doc, I didn't realize how much of myself I had shut off. It's like I was living in half-light, and now the sun's back out." That comment stayed with me, because it captures what so many men over 60 don't realize. When you stop self-pleasure completely, it's not just about what happens in the bedroom. It's about what happens in your overall energy, your outlook, even the way you move through your days. Our bodies are designed for release, and when we deny that, it's as if we're trying to hold back the tide. Eventually, the pressure shows up somewhere else, whether in irritability, stress, or physical decline. I've often told my patients that sexual health is a window into overall health. If a man ignores that part of his life, other areas often begin to falter too. Blood flow decreases, muscle tone weakens, and even memory can be affected. That's right, those rushes of feel-good chemicals during climax don't just make you feel good in the moment, they also play a role in keeping the brain sharp. They help regulate hormones that support focus and recall. Harold laughed when I explained this, saying, "So you're telling me it's like exercise for the brain too?" And I smiled and said, exactly. You see, the body doesn't separate one part of health from another the way we sometimes do in conversation. Circulation, hormones, muscle tone, mood, memory, they're all connected. When you engage in self-pleasure, you're actually engaging multiple systems at once. And when you stop, those systems can start to drift out of balance. I recall another gentleman, Thomas, who was 68 when he first came to see me. He was a widower, quiet, soft-spoken, and he admitted he hadn't touched himself in years because he thought it was something inappropriate at his age. But what struck me most was his sadness. He told me he felt empty, restless, like something inside him had shut down. And his sleep was a mess. He was up at 3 a.m. most nights, wandering the house in silence. When I gently encouraged him to reconsider, he was hesitant. But over time, as he gave himself permission, the difference was remarkable. He came back one afternoon, looking lighter, and said, "I didn't realize how much of my loneliness was tied to ignoring my body. I feel more whole now." That word, whole, is powerful, because that's what this conversation is really about. It's about not letting a part of yourself go dark just because society has taught you to hush about it. Friends, I want to pause here and ask you something directly. Does this message make sense to you? Have you noticed in your own life that when you take care of yourself in this way, your mood, sleep, or energy improves? If you have, leave me a yes in the comments. If you haven't, or if you're not sure, leave me a no. I really do read them, and your feedback shapes how I guide these conversations for you. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. That way, you'll always be part of this circle where we talk openly about what others avoid. Now let's return to what happens when men stop. Beyond mood, sleep, and confidence, there's also the physical toll. The pelvic floor muscles, for instance, are like any other muscle group. They weaken when not used. Regular release helps keep those muscles strong, which supports bladder control and even helps prevent leaks. Many older men don't connect the dots between declining pelvic strength and giving up on sexual activity, but they're directly related. There's also the matter of testosterone. Now, I promised you we wouldn't dive into heavy medical jargon, but here's the simple truth. Regular sexual activity, including masturbation, helps keep testosterone levels steadier. And testosterone isn't just about desire, it's about energy, muscle mass, bone strength, and even mood stability. Without stimulation, testosterone can dip more quickly, and that decline often shows up as fatigue, weakness, or loss of motivation.
This was true for Harold, and it was true for Thomas. Both of them thought they were just getting older, but in reality, their bodies were reacting to being neglected in a very specific way. When they reintroduced self-pleasure, their vitality returned. Not because they turned 20 again, but because they stopped working against their own biology. I also want to touch on something that rarely gets discussed: self-acceptance. Many men carry guilt or shame about masturbation, especially in later years. They were taught it was something to be hidden, maybe even something to be ashamed of. But here's what I want you to hear clearly. There is nothing shameful about caring for your body. In fact, allowing yourself this outlet can be one of the most dignified choices you make because it honors the life within you. Harold told me, months into his journey, "Doc, I wish I'd never stopped. I could have saved myself a lot of worry." And that's what I hope you take away too, that it's not too late. Whether you're 60, 70, or even 80, reconnecting with your body can still bring real, tangible benefits. It can lift your mood, steady your sleep, strengthen your muscles, and remind you that you are still a man, still alive, still whole. So when people ask me, what really happens if I stop? My answer is simple. You lose more than you think. Not just function, but vitality, confidence, and joy. And when you allow yourself to continue, you gain more than you expected. Not just pleasure, but health, peace, and connection. That's what Harold discovered, and that's what Thomas discovered, and that's what I want for you, too. When Harold came to see me for his 6-month follow-up, I'll never forget the way he walked into my office. He had that easy grin, shoulders back, and a sparkle in his eyes that hadn't been there the first time we met. He shook my hand firmly and said, "Doc, you were right. I didn't just get my body back, I got myself back." That, my friends, is the very heart of this conversation. What happens when a man chooses to stop masturbating in his later years is far more than a simple matter of desire. It's a chain reaction. The body slows, the mood dulls, the confidence fades, and the connection to life itself begins to dim. But when a man chooses to stay engaged with his body, even privately, even quietly, it keeps the engine running. It keeps circulation alive, hormones balanced, and the spirit lifted. I've seen this truth echoed in patient after patient. Men who were tired, restless, and resigned to just getting older suddenly find themselves renewed when they allow themselves to care for their body in this way. Their sleep evens out, their stress softens, their sense of humor returns. They don't become 20 again, but they feel like themselves again, and that makes all the difference. One of my patients, George, 75 years old, put it beautifully. He said, "Doc, I used to think self-pleasure was something I should have left behind with my youth, but I realize now it's what helps me stay young at heart." And he's right, because this isn't about age, it's about vitality. It's about choosing not to abandon the very things that keep you feeling alive. I want you to think about it this way. Your body has carried you for over 6 decades, faithfully, day after day. It has been your partner in every moment of life, through hard work, raising families, celebrations, and losses. It still longs to be cared for, to be used, to be honored. When you deny it, you're denying a piece of yourself. When you embrace it, you're saying yes to life, yes to health, yes to dignity. And I know this isn't always an easy conversation. For many men, it carries years of silence, cultural taboos, or old ideas about what's proper. But here's what I hope you hear clearly. We've shared today lifts some of that weight from your shoulders. You are not strange for still having desire. You are not foolish for choosing to take care of yourself. You are in fact wise for listening to the signals your body is giving you and responding with kindness. Now, let me ask you one more time. Does this message resonate with you? If it does, write yes in the comments below. If it doesn't, or if you're not sure, write no. Either way, I'll be reading because your feedback helps me keep guiding these conversations in ways that matter most to you. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and ring that bell icon. That way, you'll never miss the advice that can make the years ahead fuller and brighter. Harold's story is a reminder of what's possible. He thought he was closing that chapter on that part of his life, but in reality, it was still a vital part of his health and happiness. And when he embraced it again, he didn't just improve his circulation or his sleep, he reignited the spark that made him feel whole. That spark, my friends, is something you can reclaim too. So here's my final word to you. Don't believe the lie that you're too old, too late, or too far gone. You are alive today, and as long as you are alive, your body deserves care. If you don't masturbate in old age, you risk losing more than pleasure. You risk losing vitality, balance, and confidence. But if you do, you honor yourself, you strengthen your health, and you carry forward with a lightness that can make every day richer. I'm Dr. Nolan Easton, and it has been my privilege to walk through this conversation with you. Remember, your health is not just about blood pressure or cholesterol, but also about joy, connection, and the simple, natural rhythms that keep you alive inside. So, go forward with confidence, knowing that your body is worthy of care in every season of life. And as always, stay strong, stay hopeful, and stay connected to your body, to your loved ones, and to the life you've worked so hard to build.